chattering of teeth. My mother had an expression that she loved to use, especially if mom and dad were going to be gone for a little while and we kids were left home, usually probably preteens, we could handle the normal things. And mom would always say, keep the home fires burning. Keep the home fires burning. It's an old expression. It probably goes back to the time when they literally had to keep the fire burning in the hearth. I do know that it was a very common expression during World War I, when the soldiers were afar and the families would say, go do the duties you have to do. We will keep the home fires burning. Basically, what it meant was, we're not going to make any major changes. We'll protect the place. We'll keep everything intact. We're going to have the status quo. I do remember, though, every time my mom would say that, my younger sister would respond with, yes, Mom, we will keep the home burning. She left out one word. We'll keep the home burning. And Mom would always kind of feign, what am I to do with that little kid? Sometimes we want to keep the status quo. We don't want changes. We want things to be the way we left them. That doesn't always happen, however. I remember right after I was ordained, I was a newly ordained priest, and there was another newly ordained priest that was in a parish where the pastor was kind of the man in charge, pretty big time. And this associate was kind of learning the ropes, but when the pastor took a week of vacation, for whatever reason, this associate decided that the rectory was too cluttered, so he had a garage sale in the pastor's absence. That's not keeping the home fires burning at all. It was not a smart decision, and I'm not sure all that followed after that. But sometimes you just want to keep it status quo. But not always. The gospel today would talk about keeping status quo as almost being like the third servant who simply buried the treasure in the field. He could justify it. I gave it back to you the way you gave it to me. I kept everything intact. But that wasn't the desire of the master. You have to understand this passage, you have to put it in context. I said last week in chapter 25 of Matthew's gospel, which is the very end of the gospel before you get into the Passion account, there's 3 parables in a row. We had one last week, this week, and one next week. And of these 3 parables, they are all talking about that time when the Lord leaves us physically on earth and will come again, that we live in that in-between time. So it's Jesus who is the master in this story who's going on this long journey. And we are the ones left behind with his treasure. He's basically invested himself in us. Now, I have found over the years, people have 2 major mistakes they read into this story. And the first one is that somehow they think it's a lesson in capitalism. Almost like, how's your portfolio doing? Have you invested in the right place? Let me tell you, it's not about capitalism. Now, we do know that the term talent did refer to a large quantity of money, probably what somebody would take a year or 2 to, or maybe even 3 years to earn. It was a huge amount of money. But that is a metaphor. That is a symbol. It's the master has invested his own being, his own worth, his own, in case of Jesus, his own ministry to the servants. And we are the servants. So during the time, we can't just bury it and say, oh, this is nice. We've got to do something with it to make a difference. We have to extend the work of Jesus. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase. We are the hands, the feet, the voice, the heart of Jesus. We are Jesus on earth as the people of Jesus. He's the head. We are the body of Christ. The other mistake that lots of people make out of this parable is that they take the word talent, which of course reminds us of a skill set or certain capabilities, and we kind of think, well, you better develop those skills that you have. All of that is true, but that's not the main thrust of this parable. This parable is basically saying, do something with the faith. We are the ones to whom Jesus has given himself. Now it's up to us. He's left it behind. We make a difference. He will come again. Pope Francis has said that the church should not be a museum. Now, first of all, you have to remember the church is not just the Vatican, the magisterium, or even your local leadership. The church is people. But he's saying the church is not just a museum. And by that he's saying it's not just a place where we preserve something. And by the way, we do preserve the faith. But it's not just that we go and look at things and we leave and we feel inspired. By the way, I like museums. I love to go to the art museum. I do feel lifted up. And I love other kinds of museums. Museums of natural history are among my favorites. I love to look at bones of dinosaurs. Ever since I was a kid. I never grow beyond that. It's very fascinating. But that's not the church. We're not a museum. Instead, Pope Francis said, the church has to be more like a field hospital. And not just a hospital, but a field hospital. A field hospital is right there in the thick of things, in the battle. And this is where the wounded come. And a field hospital is willing to move on. They don't just put down deep roots. They move on to wherever people are. Have you noticed a lot of parishes people get kind of sad and upset if a parish has to close, but then they maybe get excited like us when a new parish opens. But if you look through history, church is always about place and time. We are where people are, and we're there when people are there. This is our time. This is who we are. We have to be the field hospital because people are hurting. They're desperate. They're concerned. They're filled with fear and sometimes hopeless. And sometimes, most of all, they wonder, what's it all about? As Jesus gave hope to people, we have to be the messengers of hope. That's the investment of 5 talents, 2 talents, 1 talent, all that Jesus has given to us. During the time of COVID, I know for many people, their goal, their personal goal has been sort of like to simply hang in there, do the best they can. And I don't think that's bad. But the truth is, as I said, the church takes place in time and place. So this is when we have to minister. So we don't want to just keep the parish alive or the church alive during COVID. We want it also to continue to grow. This is a time of ministry. And so people grow closer to Christ, not in spite of COVID, but through the experience of COVID, because they find other members of the church, us, we are the church, reaching out, offering help, assistance, and inclusion. This is what it's all about. So with no offense to my mother, who always said, keep the home fires burning, I'm going to change it a little bit. Don't just keep the home fires burning, but pass on the flames of faith. Spread the fire. Lots of people need more light, and we all need more heat, more warmth.